Surprise! 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 Why'd you join me at the end? We're outside.
We're outside.
Because I took over our living and dining room with a kitchen cabinet
Project.
rehab.
Rehab project.
Yeah.
It is a great project. It will be glorious and beautiful and amazing.
It's rework because we tried renovating our kitchen cabinets in our fifth wheel RV while on the road.
Yeah.
Particularly while we were in southern Florida.
Yeah, it was a little rough.
Where it was like hot, humid,
steamy.
And surprise, surprise, the cabinets did not dry properly.
No, they did not. But I mean, they looked good enough. But having more time to do that, I think it's great that you're revisiting it.
Thanks.
I say that you're revisiting it because
I'm
doing a little bit, but like
you help take them down for me, take all this stuff off. If you want to learn how to DIY change the color of your cabinets, I'll be posting more about it on Luna de Honey.
Yes,
retreat.
Do that. We do all this DIY stuff all of the time. So if you ever want to see us do those things,
it's a really mindful process because I'm like focused in on what I'm doing and paying attention to the details, and I'm like tactile and feeling it, not just looking at it.
But I also feel like
textured.
Well, but I also feel like it tells you when you're not being mindful.
Yeah, because when I'm
that's
tired,
why it's mindful process.
I start screwing up.
Which is like, I'm like painting the ceiling at 3 a.m. and you're like,
yeah,
you're gonna have to redo all of this, and I'm like, oh no, I guess I'm not mindful.
It's not looking good.
I'm not very mindful.
Or the cabinets we redid at the cabin.
Demure. Yeah.
That was a whole rework.
Yeah.
Ordeal as well. So learn from our mistakes and do better than us. Follow us at Luna de Honey.
I mean, do better because we can inform you of better.
Do better, yeah, through us.
Yeah.
Because
we screw up so you don't have to.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
And you can follow all of our RV adventures. So really, I'm working on updating the RV because we're going to be in it, traveling around some more.
All over the country.
Yeah. So follow our adventures on YouTube at Alex and Alexis. We're focusing right now on all the food we get to eat all over the country while road tripping.
Yeah.
But we'll also be showing you all the behind the scenes of what it's like to live on the road nomadically and in an RV. Or we also go site to site doing renovations. And so you get to see some DIY duo kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And coming soon. Also all the creepy adventurous stuff we see.
We get to do that now?
Side of the road.
We're going to show people those things?
We're going to, yeah.
We're going to share?
So youtube.com, just a little bit.
Okay.
At Alex and Alexis is going to be your hub for all of our adventures through a psychological
people. There are weird
wellness lens.
There are weird and creepy things out there, and I love to explore them because they're weird and creepy and awesome.
I was never into that.
And I love that
but
stuff.
Alex is into it.
So
and
we
I
get
feel
to share
safer
now.
Doing it with you.
So we're going to share now. So if you want to see the culty, creepy, criminally fantastical, bizarro, true crimey, awesome, haunted stuff that is all over the nation, especially in middle of nowhere places, from the perspective of
Alex
a fifth wheel RV.
Me to the nicest places.
We'll take you to every haunted thing ever. So if you want to check us out, do that thing. It'd be great. Yeah, by all means. So yeah. Well,
youtube.com/at1reason. All right. So we're going to be, let me go ahead and hide that thing.
All right.
So we're going to be getting started here in our weekly DC radio recording.
Wonderful.
Of our show, Wit and Reason with
Alex
and Dr. Alexis. So thank you so much for joining us all today. The way we do these live streams is that it's all like very raw and unedited, obviously, because it's live. And then
I went back and repeated myself twice already. I don't know what you're talking about.
I download it and then fine-tune it, edit, send it off to DC radio. Yeah. They do even more finessing with audio and our
I need a lot of
engineer
finesse.
tackles that.
I'm very rough around the edges. I need lots of finesse, people.
It's just like a general thing. It's not just about you. I swear.
Okay.
I swear.
Sure.
But what's also fun about being able to do our recordings live is that we get to interact with you all. So in the chat, I'm going to go ahead and say hello on YouTube and on Instagram. TikTok's still a hot mess, and so
TikTok still doesn't like us. I think
we're
I
on
did something really
Facebook.
messed up. I don't know. I think I really screwed up on TikTok. I don't know.
Well,
They're
I
mad
don't
at
know.
me. They're
One
so
day,
mad at me.
one day.
TikTok, forgive me.
But we even
Let's
get
make up.
our live stream saved on YouTube as
Mhm.
well. So if you want to catch some more of what we said, then go to YouTube, and that one's going to be youtube.com/wit and reason, and then you can catch all of our live streams.
Mm-hmm.
The unedited version so far, because I haven't gone back and touched those up because I'm too busy touching up the audio version for DC Radio. All right.
Well,
I'm so tired.
Yeah. I don't know. I was really thinking about stuff today, and my brain is just mush at this point. But one thing that I was thinking about was I was doing some of the stuff for the property, and we do hospitality, and we manage some things, and we created a beautiful wellness spot over in West Virginia, which we love.
Just 2 hours out of DC.
Just 2 hours outside of DC. And I was doing the customer servicey stuff, and I realized they completely and totally, again, because the way that I communicate via hospitality, that they are entirely convinced that they were talking to a woman.
Well, to be fair, our profile picture of our rental is the both of us.
Sure.
And the name of it is rooted in this particular one is rooted by Luna the Honey.
Yes.
Is rooted by Luna the Honey.
Yes.
I had to redo that because of the honk. I'm gonna have to get that soundbite later.
Yes.
Thanks, Face.
You're welcome.
Just in case the mic picked it up, there was a honk right while I was saying
Sure.
something. And now I'm gonna have to edit all that out. And so, and then it says the hosts are Alex and Alexis. And even then, people may not know like who's who.
Sure.
Because they're both gender neutral names.
I do all of the communication for us.
Yes.
And it was funny because definitively recently, the last one was like very much happy that they were speaking to a woman in hospitality.
The last guest?
Last guest was very...
How so? They're like, I'm so glad you're a woman.
Kind of the, you know, it was kind of gendered language towards what she assumed I was.
Okay.
And then...
So they were she-herring you?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that was funny. And I think like, and I don't really care because it's us and I just use a we.
Yeah.
The
royal we.
I always use they, them, and we for everything when it comes to our stuff.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing was like, yeah, they were very surprised when I had to like give them a call,
mm-hmm.
and they were like taking like several steps back, that they ended up talking to a man, and it took them a while to pivot around that because I think they were still trying to calculate whether or not I was the one speaking to them via text, and they were very like, have I been betrayed this whole time? Like it was very awkward.
How do you know that?
Because the way that they're like, well, she, you, they, who? And it was like, yeah, it was very interesting.
Drama.
It was very interesting to kind of be like, oh, okay. So it was interesting to see the bias there because, you know, being a man doing something in hospitality and customer service, I did customer service for, 10,000 people at a time for healthcare. So, I mean, this is easy.
Right. I've done customers. I mean, technically, we're kind of all doing customer service all our life.
True.
Even in mental health. That's
true.
Customer service.
True. But
to a certain extent.
Yeah. So it was funny to kind of.
I know. So whenever someone complains or they chat with us, they assume that they're talking to me because, of course, the woman is the one who's handling all of the like soft skills and nuances.
And I'm very gushy and emotive and wonderful and trying to be magnanimous.
You're great at it. And the funny thing about it is that Alex is way better at this than I am because
way better.
I see some of these comments or questions. I'm like, no, we're not doing
I actually
this today.
read I used to at the very beginning, read the comments to her and then she'd be like, what? And it was great. Like, what? You're going to answer them? You don't answer them. That's
a dumb question.
That's a dumb question. And I'm like,
or that's a dumb complaint. Like,
yeah,
you're in the forest in the middle of nowhere. Like, why are you complaining about? I don't know.
having
dirt
to start your own
roads.
fire, having to search your own
or
fire.
like being on a mountain, like you know where you are.
Yeah.
It's bizarre. And so when we're talking about bias, what we're talking about are,
I think it's fine.
you think so?
Yeah, I think you're
There's
fine.
more street noise.
But you get very distracted by noise because you have super
Because I'm
hearing.
going to edit it later.
But you also have super hearing.
Because I'm going to edit it later and I know what I'm talking about. Not just because I'm particular.
No, you're awesome.
And this is all my fault because I'm looking at where we usually record and there's drying cabinet doors right there.
It's all good.
Okay, so what was I saying so I can edit? Oh, this is going to be such a mess to edit. That's just going to be my keyword define whenever I have that word. Then I'll find it. So what we're talking about when we're saying bias.
Yes.
Is what, Alex?
I mean, bias is defined by like, the influence that something has based on the assumptions that you make. Mm-hmm. So it's your judgment that's been shifted by your assumptions, right? And those come from all sorts of places. In fact, I thought we were talking about something really cool about stereotypes and biases, because stereotypes are the things that inform your biases. So like some of these could be experiences, but it could be other people telling you these experiences and your biases form. And so there's a lot of different types of bias. There's like tons of types of bias, but like when you dig deep, like bias is something it's like definitively some of the interpersonal work that you have to do on your own. Like nobody can be like, be unbiased or like see this problem with yourself. Mm-hmm. Like you actually have to like do some self-searching here. And that's why I think it's kind of interesting. Like we talk about things like sexual harassment, or we talk about other aspects of like change that needs to be happening in the workplace and respect or communication. Mm-hmm. This one, you have to really dig in.
Yeah.
So, excuse me.
I think this might be the worst live we've ever had.
Only because you keep talking about it. All right, so you're saying.
Because I'm like feeling so out of it.
That might be the thing.
I'm so tired for some reason.
Okay. It's okay. Embrace the tired. Tell me all about your bias.
My bias in this
Tell me all about bias. Tell me all about this bias stuff.
Well, here's the extra creepy part about it, is that people don't know necessarily that they have bias. Mm-hmm. And we don't even have our mic.
Keep rolling.
Yeah. And people kind of like what's the word? Like they're overconfident mm-hmm. in their thought process and in their attitudes mm-hmm. and in their beliefs.
Yeah.
And the way that they perceive themselves, others, and the world. To the point where the vast majority of humans, especially if you've never been to therapy, don't even question the thousands of thoughts that they have going on in their head mm-hmm. all day, every day.
Yeah.
And so that's what's so tricky and kind of cryptic about bias.
Well, to add to that, I always think of experience. People love experience as anecdotal evidence of something, right? Like, so they're like, this was my experience, therefore this shapes the reality that I've had.
So this is what is.
My favorite new thing, and this just have so I was doing my evaluations forms for continuing education credits as a therapist. We do tons of those. Yeah. And what it says in there is their presentation based on their own experiences or evidence? And they make you select what you think they had done, because that's a problem when you're just using experience.
Yes.
And I liked it. It made me think of that bias. I think it's an anti-bias.
There's a really funny video that we don't have here because it has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but it does have to do with what you're saying. And there's this guy who's just like yelling. He's emoting a lot. And he's like something about like, I just got in an argument with my friend, and I know that they're going to talk to their therapist about it. And I need that therapist to bring me into the room to tell my side of the story. Because whenever you're in therapy, the therapist is only hearing from that person's perspective.
We do know this, just so you know. We know that you're only telling you from your side.
Yes.
Just throwing that out there.
Yes. Right. But this person doesn't realize that. They're like, that's not fair that they're only going to hear this person's perspective. And of course, they're going to be like either the victim or the hero in their own story. Mm-hmm. And I need that therapist to know the truth, which is my perspective.
Yes. Love it. I love that. That's great.
And so we do pay attention to that kind of stuff, though. True. Yeah. But, and that, I mean, there's bias in everything. So if you think about it, that like we have these attitudes and assumptions, and we kind of like jump to these conclusions, or we think about like our experience is generalizable to everybody else's experience and how we move in the world and how we interact within systems and socially.
Yeah.
And so our bias like impacts everything within our experience, everything within your experience, and then like that dual multiverse reality
right.
of experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And so what is the truth?
Yeah.
Where does the truth lie if we're all functioning from biases?
Well, but that's the thing. Like we do it as
That
a
is the big
shorthand.
philosophical question.
No, we do it as a shorthand that is actually ineffective. So we like you go into these things and you make nice and orderly boxes or things, and you put people in these boxes. These boxes are not relevant and they do not work anymore.
Yeah.
And the problem is that people continue to build up these boxes, but they're not useful. They're not good.
I mean, our brains. Some people think like our brain is like so powerful, and it kind of is, but it's also like very silly. In an effort to try to like make life and functioning easier for us, it just tries to like streamline things.
Yes.
And sure, that may work for like a factory system building a product.
Yeah.
But when we're out here in the world trying to function, streamlining things is not necessarily helpful, especially when we're just trying to like come to quick conclusions about other people or groups of people or environments or circumstances or ourselves or relationships.
And that the other part of that is like people think that these things are
Politics.
logical dynamics, and they're not illogical. They're actually illogical dynamics.
Mm-hmm.
You're not coming to a logical conclusion. You're actually riding the line of emotion, like usually fear-based emotion, anxious-based emotion. Those issues or problems, and you're not realizing it. And I usually use the example of like that. It's kind of the way we conflate argument, which is like, you didn't do the dishes. Well, you didn't take out the trash. Those have nothing to do with each other, but they both feel like they have to do with either equity, accountability, respect, the whatever, parity. It could be about all the different things. And so with that in mind, we are constantly in bias writing a bunch of underlying emotion around usually anxiety, fear, worry, noticing difference. Like it makes people uncomfortable. Yeah.
And now that we're talking it up more, people are starting to recognize it, or if they've like gone to therapy, they recognize it within themselves, and then, or even if they've taken a class. Yeah. Or others.
There are classes.
They recognize it in others as well. Yes.
You do classes?
I do training. Well, we both do.
Yeah, but yours are good.
We're in the same training.
Oh yeah. I'm in that one, aren't I?
Yes.
I did that.
We have an anti-bias training app, by the way. It's specific for cast and crew and production.
I always think of you doing all these things because you're so active and do them.
Yeah. No, you were there.
I'm there.
Yeah.
I talk about this stuff.
You have a bias toward me.
I do.
And toward you.
I do. You're the one who's got all the smarts and do the things.
And then what are you then?
I'm professional and orderly. I don't know. I'm a puddle right now. I'm a puddle.
I should just say putz.
I'm in a glass case of emotion.
It's only Tuesday.
Milk was a bad choice. All right.
So what's cool about that though is that like people can try to like notice it within themselves, which is great. But then they're also kind of like acutely aware of others doing it. And so what are the challenges? And throwing this out there to everyone, what are the challenges you face when you do recognize that there's a bias outside of you?
And what does that trigger?
Either it's happening to you or you're just like a bystander of this and it's like happening around you and you notice it happening. And then if we consider biases within these three different categories of like cognition, how we're thinking, our beliefs and attitudes, social biases about other people or groups, populations, or organizations or structural biases.
I think that one's really interesting.
Yeah.
But I like that there's three types of bias, because categorizing them I think is helpful.
Yeah.
Because and then I immediately go to systemic bias, and when we're talking about this stuff, like organizational bias is bigger than systemic bias, because systemic is about the policies or procedures that you're engaging in versus the organization itself. That's brilliant, and I think they're really well thought out. I think it really is helpful for us to kind of challenge all of these things. And I think that's, the word for
challenge.
You have to kind of challenge.
Yeah.
Challenge.
But before we even go to solutions, what's a moment when you notice bias either in yourself or around you and you weren't sure how to respond? What's kind of like the default for people? We know what that answer is.
We do?
Yes, because we study this.
I know. There's lots of defaults.
So what tends to happen, so hide that. What tends to happen when we experience bias is that we're kind of like thrown off and a bit confused.
Yeah.
Because we're like, wait, what?
Well, as somebody of like experiencing it, you get very much like puzzled by the inevitable conclusion that somebody came to.
That someone else kind of,
They're like, how did you get there? Your math isn't mathing.
Yeah.
Ooh, I like that phrase for this. Bias. When your math isn't mathing.
Yeah. And that could be like toward you. People have our renters have a bias towards us and assuming that I'm the one responding to their customer service questions at like in the middle of the night. And to me, so when I first learned about that, I was like, what? Why would they think that? Like it's that first kind of like confusion.
Yeah.
Or even like when we're out in the world and we experience some kind of bias, there might be that like, well, you get kind of thrown off. And the challenge with that like emotional process is that then we're not necessarily ready to act or respond or call it out or correct it. In a way, it's kind of like experiencing it's kind of a similar experience of like microaggressions, right? Especially if these are like negative biases towards us or a group of people or our community. And we get thrown off about that. And we might think about it later and think like, well, wait a second.
That's screwed up.
Or if it was negative, or even if it was something that was positive.
We also assume that we do negative bias versus the positive biases.
Right.
Yeah. Well, because you're going to feel better you're going to feel you're less affected negatively by the positive biases. You're internally going to then feel guilty or some sort of shame.
That's what I was saying. I was like, how there's like survivor's guilt. This is like a way different type of experience, but there's like positive bias guilt.
Well, I think
now.
I mean, I think it's the same.
It's like I didn't ask. I didn't ask to be treated differently by cops when they pull me over.
Yeah. No, that's what I think of when people.
Do I benefit from it? Have I got myself out of tickets? Yes.
But that's when I think of like privilege, right? Like when I think about privilege, I think that's where people struggle with that because they assume that it means other things than what it actually means. Like the idea is that like people have a bias for you.
Yeah. And
so that there's more positive engagement for you. You do not have the same problem because of these things. And like, that's not about your fault.
Right.
You just have to understand it and challenge and change the things around you to make sure that you're not engaged in it. You know what I mean? Like if you go up and like someone left their ATM card in the machine. Or
use it to everyone's benefit.
If somebody just
use your privilege.
Sure. But if somebody takes money out of an ATM and you go up and they leave something in there and you take that money from them, you're just stealing. I mean, did they mean to do it? No. Like the idea is that like if somebody just leaves it there, you're like, oh, well, that's cool for me, but that person gets screwed out of it. Like, it's not like you've done something inherently wrong per se. It just happened. But at the same time,
it's like now what do you do with that?
You do have the choice to say, oh, I don't have to take this.
Right. I'm going to take the freebie and not get the ticket.
Yeah.
Because that doesn't harm anybody.
Yeah.
But like.
I think, does that metaphor make sense? I don't know. I'm not sure, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I got that.
Yeah.
And the tricky part about
fleshing that one out, okay, everybody, that's new material. I don't know about it.
The tricky thing about talking about bias is that there's so many different types.
Yes.
And there's, both the positive, the negative, the stuff that hurts or hinders, or the stuff that like benefits certain groups of people.
Well, and then the other one that bothers me is the social one. Because like social biases, and I go into like ideas of like people are all about like introverted, extroverted, all this other stuff, and using all this language there, and they're not. It doesn't fit everything.
Or those like, personality quizzes.
Just stop it.
They're not even necessarily psychologically sound or
I know.
metrically sound.
Don't make the assumptions. Even if somebody says I'm an introvert or extrovert or whatever else, like.
And then it's so rigid and limiting.
Yes.
So the issues with biases, number one, is that it could elicit a lot of uncomfortable feelings, obviously. The other part is that you could be easily manipulated.
Oh yeah, that's true. That is true.
So I was probably screwing up while driving and I'm totally at fault and totally deserve that ticket.
Mm-hmm.
But if I know I could get away with getting out of it, then I'm going to manipulate the short-minded biased cop and get out of it.
There is definitely.
So you kind of end up looking foolish. So it's kind of like the same thing with science. I mean, like, sure, you don't have to believe it, but it still exists.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And in this scenario, it could be used against you.
Yes.
So the awareness is helpful and important across the board, just because we try to eliminate these types of DEI words from our vocabulary or texts or research doesn't make the reality of it disappear.
I mean, what's interesting about that
and
is
the risks and liabilities associated with it disappear.
Well, that's weird because the less you know, right? Mm-hmm. So say you're eliminating all these things so that everyone has equity or equality or some other garbage, right? That's your platitude for that. Mm-hmm. You're now more easily manipulated because you know a lot less than I do.
Yeah.
Or your kids will know a lot less. So therefore your kids are more easily manipulated.
Or they're going to end up in HR and then they're going to be the liability and they're not going to be able to get a job.
No.
You know?
Yeah. But, yeah. That's the thing. Like the less you know, the more manipulated you are, but also then the more problems you would run into and have to learn by pain and suffering.
Yeah. I mean,
education is like less painful and suffering than like
education, training, talking this stuff up. Mm-hmm. That's all a form of prevention.
Yeah.
For
running head, like you don't need to run headfirst into like a glass door to realize that that's going to be bad.
Yeah. So keep on working on yourselves and exploring and learning with an open mind.
Yeah.
We'll talk more about ways to level up. We have a couple of people sharing their thoughts.
Let's do it. I love these ones.
about bias.
All right. Which one do we start with?
Go ahead. Either one. Just go and start them.
Women to be taking up more.
Dang.
Did you know men have a cognitive bias which makes them perceive women to be taking up more space than they actually do? When women make up just 17% of a group, men will perceive it as being a 50-50 split. When women make up just 33% of a group, men see women as the overwhelming majority. And this isn't just a visual bias. Despite stereotypes that women speak more than men actually speak more than women. Also, when women are in the minority, they tend to speak even less. As whether when men are in the minority, they speak about the same amount. When women do speak up in a group where they're in the minority, they're more likely to be interrupted. Women have to make up 60 to 80% of a group before they can expect to speak an equal amount of time. But when women speak as often as men perceive that women have been speaking for the majority of the time. And this perception goes even further. Essayist Robert Lipsyte blamed young boys' lack of reading on the overwhelmingly female imprint in children's literature. But when they actually studied it, only 33% of lead characters are female. And if a character appears in a title, they are twice as likely to be male. In 2015, the MacArthur Awards were criticised for disproportionately handing out awards to women and people who were not white. But again, when you actually look at the reports, only 38% of the awards went to women. Only 33% went to minorities. So 62% still went to men, and 67% still went to white people.
She goes on, and she has a whole...
That's really solid.
This person, has a whole page dedicated to just these gender biases or sex bias.
All right, so this will be posted on our stuff, but yes. I want to follow this person because this sounds really great. I want to find more.
And that's why, my friends, research is just so important, because otherwise we're just making generalized assumptions about how we think the world is.
Using confirmation bias and other various forms of bias.
And I think of all the issues we're facing these days, my mind's been kind of like playing around with this a bit. I think one of our biggest threats, even more so than false information, misinformation.
Sophistry is my fancy word about it.
Is confirmation bias, especially with like social media and even your basic Google search. You're going to get the results that you're kind of seeking out. Mm-hmm. And I'm still kind of testing out AI to see, like, are you just telling me what you think that I want to know? Or are you giving me like the actual facts? And I have to be very specific with it in certain cases when I'm not just playing around with it and say, like, show me peer reviewed articles. Like, don't just show me like marketing or what's in entertainment news sources, like tell me the facts of it. But that's because I'm motivated to do that. Not everyone is. And so confirmation bias is just flooding all of our screens.
Yes.
And I think that's so incredibly dangerous.
I agree. I
continue with all of these societal and political issues.
I like that a lot. That's really good.
Oh, thanks.
What?
Thanks.
You're welcome. I like your take on bias.
Yeah, there you go. Unmute it. No.
See, I'm doing it.
Confirmation bias is a psychological phenomenon that basically helps us be right. Whatever you believe, your brain is going to help you believe whatever you feel you believe.
There it is.
So confirmation bias says this: once you have a strongly held belief about a thing, your brain will show you more proof and evidence that shows you that the thing that you believe is correct, and at the same time hide from you any evidence to the contrary. If you believe he's a dog, if you believe she's a player, if you believe that, your brain is so intelligent. Your brain's going to go on assignment to find all the proof to make you right. He is a dog. She is a dog. She is a gold digger, etc., etc., etc. Your brain is trying to make you right.
Okay, see exactly what I'm talking about here. And that's very kind. This person's like, your brain is so intelligent.
Yeah.
That doesn't seem intelligent to me. That seems just so
reactive.
Flawed.
It's reactive. I mean, I think the thing is we categorize things to like simplify something to make it what we feel is safe.
Especially if you're like very ego based, where you don't have the ego strength to be like, think outside of what your beliefs are, or have the openness to, explore that and get new information and update your beliefs or attitudes.
I mean, I think of like, if you had no fears regarding things that are different from where your perspective is or what you are, I feel like you then would be free of bias, because then you're curious.
Yeah.
And you get to like be curious, and that's empathy, and that's engagement, and that's like thoughtfulness, and can know that you don't know everything. But I feel like there's so much like fear.
Yeah, our brain really wants to like get things cookie cutter, nice and neat, right and wrong.
Yeah.
And the world's just like not like that. There's so much
order.
Yeah.
When there doesn't have to be that much order, I think the ordination of things started as one thing to like start knowing stuff. And then you have to start abandoning it, because as you like, it's like kind of like math, right? You start with fundamentals of math, right? 1 + 1 is 2. Eventually you get to a point where math is so theoretical that 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2 anymore. And you're like, what just happened to my brain? Because how far you get, the levels of abstraction from this particular thing make you more and more and more, so that you're not stuck in these building blocks of things. But I feel like we're all stuck with the building blocks then.
And it makes sense from a survival perspective.
Yeah.
Our brain needed to quickly understand that at that first trial and error of getting close to that flame, that's hot. Oh, I have one right here.
Or generally, these animals will kill me.
That's hot. And so our brain is like, easy, fire, hot. Done. Don't need to think about it anymore. Don't need to keep on testing it. Don't need to like be more open to this concept of like, is it really hot? I mean, I suppose you can. Will I get hurt? Right. And so kind of like your simplistic math at that superficial level, yes, this is helpful for us to have this understanding and this bias against fire. But then when we start getting into more complex realities, like the human experience or groups of people or policies and politics, or, like in the video, like, who are men in relationships, who are women in these relationships, what do they want from me?
Assumptions that you're making.
Yeah. Then we can't generalize as easily as flame equals hot, like guy equals dog or a-hole or someone who's trying to like harm you. It's just not that simple.
Yeah.
So then the goal would be not only, so when we're leveling up here, not only do we have to have that awareness, number one, of what are our thoughts, because so much of it's so freaking fast and automated, and we just default to it, and we don't even think about questioning it. So the first step would be the awareness of it, of our thoughts, that metacognition, thinking about your thinking. And then the second piece would be, like you said, to approach it with curiosity.
Yeah. And I think that, like, partly it's also then, as you explore that for yourself, I mean, take take bias training, so anti-bias training. So
that helps.
Take a look at it if you want to level
foundation.
up. We have a training on that. It's really wonderful. So
particularly if you're in cast and crew and production, and then we create some. We have a multicultural humility that's more generalized for people.
Yeah.
And then we make very custom ones for organizations specific to their organization and what might come up as a bias or.
So I think challenge that is interesting, because the idea is, like, if you really look at like every construct, like look at race, or look at gender, look at sexuality, look at religion, look at all these different, look at all the different areas. What assumptions do you make when you move through the world? What do you think about, like, unhoused people, and what does that look like? Like, how do you treat them? What does that fit? Who do you think of when you think of those people? It's kind of like when you always
what image
there's always
just popped up in your head right now when he said those words?
But like, even like when people talk about like welfare, because in social work we talk about public works and things like that, so we talk about welfare. Well, most people on welfare are not on welfare forever, and we think of very stereotyped ideas around who's on welfare. That is not the majority who's on welfare. The majority of welfare are white folk who are unemployed for a short period of time, who ended up then becoming gainfully employed again, or kind of getting back on their feet. And that's the majority of welfare.
Yeah.
People always think of those things as like,
and that's why the research is so important, because we can't just work off of these assumptions and then expect to enhance our humanity or societies, or if you're creating policies either in your organizations or in your communities or politically, and you're coming in with all of these biases and not actually questioning them or getting the actual research on, like, what is the fact of this situation.
They don't.
That you're just setting yourself up for sabotage and failure.
And you're really just being manipulated by stupidity.
By your own bullshit.
By stupidity. Stupidity.
wherever you learn that shit. Your parents, grandparents.
So challenge it, change it, do something a little bit different.
Religion, communities.
Self-searching that is really great. So pay attention to it. Listen to people talk about it. Listen about bias. Get trained on it. And that's the only way to really level up, is really self-exploration. So
that empathy piece is also really important, especially around the social biases. Is really actively listening to other people who are different than you, and learning from their experiences and their perspectives and their lives and stories as well. Beneficial. So check us out. Learn.witandreason.com. Keep on reflecting, learning, and evolving. We got you covered.
You get to pass this on to other people. It's infectious in a great way.
Apparently, it's a radical act to evolve,
to learn things,
to self-reflect, learn, and evolve. So
to know stuff.
Resist by taking some anti-bias trainings.
Read a book.
Well, smart books. Smart books.
I was thinking.
What were you thinking?
Fahrenheit 451, because they're going to burn books next, because now they took away the research and they burn up books.
See? All because of biases that people...
Biases.
And then I don't know what we're talking about next week.
Next week, we're talking about...
either anti-sexual harassment, or... do you want me to just edit that in later? Or bystander...
Upstanding?
Upstanding.
Let's do that.
Okay.
Let's talk about upstanding.
Okay.
All right. So now you heard about biases. When you see it, next week, you're going to learn how to stand up to it just a little bit, tidbit.
And we talked about like the challenges associated with that. And so let's get you prepped.
Yeah.
Just to tackle this nonsense. All right. So next week, Tuesday, 4:30 p.m. Pacific, 7:30 p.m. East Coast. And then if you're just joining in, you can see this live stream recording of our DC radio show already set up for you on youtube.com/wit and reason. And then you'll be able to get the clean and edited version